Hi, I'm Laura Nelkin. Welcome to my other home, Taughannock Falls. I hike here almost every day and I'm super excited to share it with you. One of the big facts I know about Taughannock Falls is that it is the tallest free-falling waterfall east of the Mississippi, but my data kind of stops there. So I'm going to introduce you to Josh Teeter, who is an environmental educator for Taughannock Falls, and he's going to teach us a ton about it.
Hi, I'm Josh. I've been the environmental educator here for just over 10 years. And in that time, I've learned a ton of history, a lot of geology, and I've spent a lot of time here with the trees and the animals that we'll see hopefully some in the gorge today.
So Josh, I kind of want to tell you about a dream I had last night when we were getting ready to come film. I had a dream that we showed up at the overlook and that it was full of scaffolding and they were concreting over the whole falls. And like, you know, you got to have a stress dream about something right now.
Yeah.
But
could have been a historical stress dream.
It could have been historical because
in 1896, they noticed that a large part of the falls was ready to break away, and it was the lip of the falls. And they had planned on going out to cement it in place, but the weather turned and they figured they would get to it in the spring, but that rock fell, which changed the falls from this curtain that used to come out to now it's a recessed kind of curtain.
Right,
So,
and that was in the late 1800s, you said?
1896, yeah. Was your dream in black and white?
My dream was not in black
Not
and
black and
white,
white,
and
so-
no one was wearing masks in my dream,
Okay.
so it was like double stressful. So I've been coming here I moved to Ithaca to go to Cornell in 1990 or 91, I guess it was, and I've been coming to Taughannock the whole time. My daughter and I spent a ton of childhood, her toddler years, walking in the creek. And what's special to you for people of all ages about this?
Well, there's a little bit of everything here. So this park is open and busy pretty much all year. So we've got the big waterfall behind us, and that draws a bunch of people here. But we're also on the shore of Cayuga Lake. So there's the North Shelter over there where so many people get married. I had a baby shower over there for one of my daughters. It's just a beautiful spot along the water. And then you go across the bridge and we've got a swimming area with lifeguards, a sandy beach over there. There's a fisherman's pier. There's a small marina. So there's nice lake access over there as well. If you want a little more privacy, we've got rim trails. There's a multi-use trail that goes a little bit to the north. And if you go there in the wintertime, we actually have two small areas that we fill with water so that there are some ponds that you can ice skate on. And there's a nice sledding hill over there with a warming hut.
That sledding hill is not for me.
It is a great sledding hill.
That is a sledding hill to break your arm on.
I did break my arm sled riding, but not on this hill.
But you
Separate
could.
hill. This arm.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, the warming hut has wood, and people are allowed to have fires in there, and they can watch their kids. And if you're adults, you know, two of you can go down, one of you can drive the car down and pick people up and give them a ride back to the top.
Drive them back up, yeah. We've skated in those ponds. We're not daredevils in my family, so we never sledded down that hill. But I did use that land and trails to cross-country ski on a bunch before, which is really fun.
Yeah, those trails are nicer for skiing.
Yeah.
They're not as rugged.
They're not as rugged, yeah.
Yeah, over by the sledding hill, I would say, that loop over there, from the overlook to the sledding area, those trails are kind of challenging for cross country. You definitely need backcountry skis, and you should
Which I have,
you should probably walk it before you go out, because sometimes there's some things
you need to know
snow.
about. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a great park because this trail is pretty flat right here, so you can take a stroller on it if you want to. Some of our other parks are a little bit, and you can, people in wheelchairs do make it all the way down to the viewing area at the falls. So it's a great park in the fact that it does really have something for everybody. I know a lot of places say that, but
it's actually true.
It's actually true here. And if you're not familiar with the Finger Lakes, Cayuga Lake it's 38.2 miles long, and it's 435 feet deep at its deepest point. So it's a cool lake to be out on a boat. There are boat tours that go out. So
yeah, I invested in a paddleboard this year because, you know, we're not going anywhere. I was like, I'll get a paddleboard for vacation. And I just get out there at North Point and I feel like I'm on break. And I'll be out for an hour.
And one of the cool things is we have racks that you can rent for the season, so you don't have to constantly take your boat on and off. You just lock up your canoe or kayak or paddleboard, and then you can come down and grab it. If you don't want to invest in one, we have a concessionaire that rents paddleboards, so you can go across the lake or up or down if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that with kayaks.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah.
Really, I agree with you that it's got all the things that you need to keep you happy.
And it's tough sometimes. Lake access can be tricky in areas, and it's nice that the parks has some good lake access that even if you're not from around here, it's $8 to get into the park to get some nice lake access. But
Agreed. I get one of the state park passes every year,
the Empire
and then I'm
passes,
good to go.
Yeah, it's a really good thing to have.
Yeah. How were the falls formed? That's like such a vague question.
It is a big question. So easiest way to explain that is during the last ice age, which was about 2 million years ago to 10,000 years ago, there were a series of glacial advances and retreats. So they came down through the region and they created the Finger Lakes. And then when they receded or melted all the way back, the meltwater that was on this land here falling into the steep-sided lakes that we have eroded the gorges back. So this gorge is only about 12,000 years old, and where we're sitting was never touched by that glacier because this was solid rock when it left.
Gotcha.
So the glaciers caused the lakes, and then the water actually formed the gorges. And as we get farther into the gorge, we'll see why that erosion happened so fast, because when I say 12,000 years, it sounds like a long time, but many gorges of this size would actually take millions of years to form.
Gotcha.
So there's some local geology that accounts for that.
And is the falls are receding every year?
They keep
a little
moving
bit?
back, yeah.
Are you guys measuring that? Is it?
So no, we're not really measuring it. Yeah, so they've kind of stalled. You know, we see things happen, but it's not something that we track like on an inch by inch basis.
Right. Yeah. There's this one rock when I'm up on the railroad bridge up at the top on the rim trail. There's a point sticking out, and there's a rock with a tree growing out of it that every time I walk by, I'm waiting for that to be down.
Yep, and we do have excitement here sometimes with rocks coming down, but later on I can also share how we try to keep our visitors safe in these areas. I think New York State Parks keeps our visitors safer than any other park system in the world.
Yeah.
Once we get in there and you see 200-300 feet of rock above us, we really do go through and clean that rock up every year to try to keep everybody safe as possible.
I've come here with visitors before, and you're doing the scaling on the walls, and then you don't get to go in. That's the time where
So I'm not an official scaler, but I help them with the geology, and I jump over a cliff once in a while.
Right on. I've seen them this year. I saw them up at the top jumping down, and they look like they were having the time of their life. That's a fun job, right?
Yep, they're at Niagara Falls right now.
Nice. So they come like in the springtime, like after
So here
snowmelt?
we can do scaling in the spring, but at Niagara Falls, due to some nesting birds, we have to wait till the fall to do some stuff there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I always get confused about which kind of rocks are in this gorge.
So generally, we've got 3 different types of rock. So if we step back even from that, we've got metamorphic, igneous, and sedimentary rocks, on Earth. Here it's all sedimentary rock.
Gotcha.
And within sedimentary rocks, there's different classifications. And what we'll see here in the gorge is behind us, you can see that small waterfall. That is limestone right there. There's a vein of limestone about 15 feet thick called the Tully limestone. And then above that, we'll have layers of shale and sandstone. So they're all sedimentary rock, but they all have different characteristics. So the limestone has a lot of calcium carbonate, which makes it kind of hard, makes it very resistant to water erosion. But when we look at that from the top, we'll see pits in top of it, and that's from chemical erosion. So any acidity that touches that rock can chemically weather that rock. And we used to have a slight acid rain problem. So there was some chemical weathering that happened, but there's also acid that comes from the trees, like our hemlocks, and many of our pines produce acid too. So there's still some chemical erosion happening there.
Right, that's like natural,
and
not man-made.
If you see us pick up a thin, flaky rock and break it in our hands, that's going to be that shale. So that's essentially mud that became rock. And then sandstone is big and blocky. It's kind of this wall right behind us here is made of sandstone. You can build with that. So we've got 3 different types of rock with 3 different types of characteristics, but essentially it all came from erosion from an ancient mountain range that deposited into a sea that used to cover this area.
Right, and so one thing that I used to do a lot with my daughter, I still do it some, is look for fossils in the shale. Like, it's very fun to break apart shale and look for fossils.
So when I have fossils out with me, I'll let people handle them and I'll say, be careful, they're twice as old as the oldest dinosaur, because all of the rock that we're going to see today is about 380 million years old.
Wow, that's old.
Yeah, so they're all marine creatures. For anybody that likes fossils, you can find crinoids, trilobites, horned coral, brachiopods. There's a couple others that pop up occasionally. But
Right. But those are the main ones.
Yep.
Have you ever seen those rocks that you can find sometimes along the lakeshore that have a perfect hole in the center of them? They're called lucky stones, maybe? I'm stumped, Josh.
I know you. Well, yeah, you stumped me. It's in my brain somewhere. I was just reading it because it has to do. It's a form of concretion where there was a void in the rock as the rock was being formed, and then minerals go into that void, and they're made different things, and then that's chemically weathered.
Right, and they fall apart.
There was a nucleus or something that was in the middle that's no longer there.
Right.
So that's not the best explanation of it, but I know.
It makes sense to me. I can totally.
Museum of the Earth has got a beautiful explanation of those stones on their website.
Museum of Earth is cool. That would be a fun one to do with everybody at some point. I'll put a link to that below if anybody wants to see what the Museum of the Earth does.
Yeah.
And then vegetation-wise, we were just talking about a gorgeous sugar maple and sumac, which I don't see behind us right now,
There'll be some a little bit farther up on a nice bend.
Excellent.
They should have some good color.
Yeah, sumac does the most amazing gradient at this time of year. That is
our maples are looking great, and then we've got a lot of ash, and there's some sycamore, tulip poplars that are gonna have some really, really nice.
Those have the
color.
huge leaves, right?
So some of the tulip poplars, can be really, really big. Some are regular size leaves, but they have this nice kind of tulip shape to them, and they grow suspiciously straight. So they're some of our biggest trees, and if you look at the trunks, they're really, really straight.
Excellent. And poplar is a fast-growing tree, right?
Yep.
Like they grow fast and then they
So it's
fall.
a successional tree. So usually where you've got grasses or meadows becoming more forest, you see them in there. They'll be in there with the quaking aspen or big-tooth aspen.
Right. And aspen bark is does the aspens have yellow leaves? This is where you're like, I'm not a tree.
Yeah, they'll turn yellow. And some of the bark is really lighter colored. So we can look for a couple of quaking aspens. I can point it out. But as they get older, it'll be gray at the bottom.
Right.
And that's something I like to do with kids is ask them, if they had 2 crayons to pick to draw a tree, I'll ask you, what colors would you pick?
Well, if I asked 5-year-old Laura, I would say like brown for the tree trunk and green for the leaves, right?
Yeah.
Right now I'd say more like a gray, tanny color.
Exactly.
If I'm looking behind you and answering that question.
Yeah, so if you look and you see most of the tree bark is actually gray.
Yeah.
So I try to challenge kids to do that so their parents say, what are you doing? Do you not have a brown crayon? And they say, look out the window.
Right?
So we do have brown trees
I'm thinking outside the box, Mom.
We have a lot of hemlock trees that are actually kind of a reddish brown or almost maroon color.
Right.
Which have their own beauty.
Yeah. So one of my favorite ways to see Taughannock is in the winter. And the bottom trail, so the trail we're going to walk up, that trail doesn't get closed for most of the winter. It stays open, right?
So the only reason we really have to close it is because too many people are coming on it, packing the snow down,
and then it
gets cold,
ice.
and then it becomes a sheet of ice.
Yeah.
But if trail conditions are safe, we keep it open, and it can be beautiful because you can see the waterfall never really freezes, but all the mist freezes on that, 400-foot walls to the side of it, and it can be absolutely amazing.
It's stunning.
I think it was 2012. It was really, really cold, and a cone of ice formed at the bottom of the waterfall. So I took some photos, and I had some photos where there was no ice in the photo, and I figured out it was 72.3 feet high.
Oh my gosh.
Which is exactly 1/3 of 215.
Of the falls. Yeah.
So there's probably some physics
and that's
involved
like the
there.
rule of thirds
But
right there. That's just art. That's nature doing art right there.
So I was astounded that I did the math. I was like, that's exactly 1/3.
That's amazing. Was that the year that they ended up closing 89 because the ice came down and was almost covering the bridge?
So that'll happen in the spring.
Okay,
We've got a lot of ice, and then it warms up really fast. It melts, and it all comes down here, and you can actually hear it grinding against the rocks. And many times we have to stage a or an excavator on either side of Route 89. You have 2 excavators trying to pull ice.
I've seen that.
Because we've had ice go as far as Gorge Road before.
Wow.
From here.
From here,
to hit that stop sign at the bottom of Gorge Road, which is, quarter mile away.
You guys can just be amazed by that because you don't know where Gorge Road is.
Yeah, it's not that far, but it's not right here.
Yeah, it's the winter is awesome, and I've worn like yak tracks to go in there, and I do the rim trail as much as I can in the winter.
Yeah, we just have to close the real steep ends.
Yeah,
here,
so we go through the campground, and then we come down through the inn.
Yep.
There's a way around it if you're determined to hike it.
Yeah. And every January 1st, we actually offer a first day hike here to help people kind of kick off the new year in a healthy way. And I think 9 years ago, I offered the first hike and I had 6 people. Last year, I had 1,618 people show
I
up.
was there.
That's a big crowd,
It's
right?
awesome.
So this year, we're gonna,
awesome.
yeah, we're not gonna try to start everybody at once. It's gonna be a
No.
day-long affair.
Yeah,
We will have
yeah.
a table out there. You can still win cool prizes if you like the backpacks and trekking poles and Empire cards, things like that.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna count people, and if you're like the 200th hiker, you're gonna get the backpack.
Nice
Yeah,
score. My friend got a bunch of the bandanas he did for last year and made masks for everybody in Trumansburg, which I
Yeah,
thought was
and I've seen
totally
them around.
awesome.
I've seen them
Yeah.
around,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was like, well, that's a good, like, you know, turning a good memory into something useful for now.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about wildlife at all. I know that this year has been the year of the Peregrine falcon at Taughannock.
So we started seeing them on a more regular basis 2 years ago. And we looked for a nest last year and we didn't find anything. But this year they actually did nest here.
And the last time was like in the 60s or 70s?
1946
Okay.
is the last time we know that there was a nest here. And they were first documented at Taughannock Falls, I think in 1909.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not to say they weren't here before that.
Right, but
that's when they're first documented. The
Yeah.
first professor of ornithology was at Cornell, and I think that was in 1912.
Gotcha.
And he's the one that took some of the cool photos from the 30s.
I've seen that photo.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
I think it's Arthur Allen.
Yeah, I've shown that photo to people before. It's amazing. The peregrine's just sitting right
Yep,
in front of the falls.
So he was the first professor
Yeah.
of ornithology.
Right
And he helped
on.
found the lab of ornithology here as well, Sapsucker Woods. So yeah, they were here for a while, and then last known 1946. This year.
And
we
then
saw them.
DDT.
Yeah, DDT harmed a lot of birds,
Yeah.
and peregrines especially. So their numbers really kind of plummeted until like the late 60s. They stabilized at a very low level. Cornell was instrumental in capturing a bunch of birds and raising some eggs in captivity, and then trying to release them back into the wild. And they tried that here in the mid 70s, but the great horned owl ate 2 of the 3 birds that they put out. Not just here, but everywhere that they put them
Right.
out. Because they were trying to put them in their natural areas.
Yeah. And the owls were like, yum, I've been waiting for one of those for a while.
Yeah, I mean, you could be the fastest bird in the world, but if you're sitting on a cliff edge
Yeah.
and you've got one of the coolest predators in the world, the great horned owls are, they're called flying tigers.
Right.
Because they are built for being predators. So what they had to do is they pulled all of these peregrines back in and rethought things. They brought them here because pigeons are their preferred food source, or medium-sized birds. So they brought all these birds back in and thought about it, and they started actually putting them out closer to cities because there are fewer owls and tons of pigeons.
Right,
And their
like
numbers,
New York
their numbers
City.
started climbing,
Yeah.
and then they started dispersing on their own. So it was a longer way to get back to where we are now.
Right.
But it worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their numbers they're doing great. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see them.
Yeah, I've
around.
had my eye on I think the adults took off at some point once the babies hatched and were happy,
They
right?
could still be around.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw an adult the other day. I can't guarantee they're not tagged or anything.
Right. Like whose mommy that is or daddy.
Yeah, but probably the same pair.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and they'll come back year after year.
Really
So-
cool. I know it's a fun thing to look for. I look for them every time I hike. I know some branches where they hang out, and I'm always looking for them. And it's like every third hike that we'll see one of them sitting on a branch.
And this is a nice safe spot because the cliff edges that they prefer, there's no real access to them from people.
Yeah.
So it should be a good place for them to come year
Yeah, I
after
can't
year.
even like get a picture with my phone, so they're definitely safe.
Yeah,
I'm like, look, there's a peregrine right
There are some pictures out there.
Yeah, I know, I've
really,
seen 'em.
really long lenses
Those
were needed.
nice
yeah.
cameras.
So.
Yeah, and in terms of like other wildlife.
So there's fox, porcupine occasionally, skunks. Rare, we've seen bear before. I've got pictures of bear, not in the gorge, but just up on the other side of the gorge.
And black bear, that is.
It was a black bear,
Yeah.
So not too worrisome.
No.
We don't really have problems with black bears. We see them cut through the parks, but they don't ever hang around our campgrounds or harass our visitors. So we've been really fortunate with black bear.
Right.
Lots of deer.
Lots of deer.
Yeah, lots of deer. And really good bird life too. Barred owls, great horned owls, rough-winged swallows, which the peregrines love to eat.
That's how that works. People smelt in the spring, right?
Yep, they can smelt. They fish right here at the lower falls a lot.
This will be like filthy with fishermen in the springtime, and they're all
I don't know
in
if I
their
would use
gators.
the word filthy.
Filthy in a good way, just like a lot of
filthy
them.
in a good way, yeah. Yeah, it's a great spot. I mean, it's a beautiful spot to fish. You know, the trout come right up this little spot, and they stop right there. So
Right, they can't quite jump over that.
they cannot get over that.
Yeah.
So trout fishing is not very fruitful beyond the lower
Beyond
falls
the falls, yeah. And what about mountain lions? I know people talk about like bobcats or mountain lions in this region.
So bobcats, are pretty numerous around here. They're a smaller animal, so that a lot of times they're mistaken for house cats, but a big house cat. And then
Right.
some people think they are a mountain lion. So bobcats can have a short tail, and a mountain lion would have a very long tail. And mountain lion are much bigger, so they can be 65 to over 200 pounds. And the DEC says there are no breeding pair of mountain lion in New York. They may pass through. They've had collared cats come through New York State as far as from Colorado before.
Wow.
But that's not unusual for a cat that has the biggest range of any mammal in the world. It actually has more names than any other mammal in
Because
the
it's like
world.
known in so many different
It's known,
regions. Yeah.
Cougar, catamount, concolor, puma. So it's got all of these names, but I've never seen one here. I did live in Western Washington, and I had a cougar that came through about once a month through the property where I lived and went to school. So I've been around them before, and if anything, they just heighten your awareness when you're out there.
Right,
So
just
if
a
you want to
little,
be more
like-
aware and see more things, pretend there are mountain lion or cougar around, but I wouldn't be concerned at all about them here.
No, I feel like it's one of those like old wives' tales that people pass around.
I mean, they're amazing animals.
Yeah.
I was out in the woods a lot alone, so I learned a ton about them, but I don't get to share much about them because they're just not here.
Because they're not here, and that's not why you're teaching. Yeah, so that was a good segue.
Yeah.
So one of the many things I love about Taughannock is I don't ever tire of it. Like I hike here many days a week, and I'm always excited to come here, and I certainly appreciate it for the exercise it gives me and the health benefits. And I see so many other people out on the trail as well. Really blown away by everybody's trail etiquette this year because things have changed with COVID.
Yeah.
Did you guys you had to move quickly to kind of come up with a plan?
We did in a bunch of different locations. So usually we want as many people as possible to come, and that's been our goal. But this year we've had to limit things a little bit and say park is kind of full at this time, and that happened here a number of times. This is a park that is in high demand. So what we want people to have that experience when they're here to get all of those benefits, not just the exercise, but many people that go into nature find, one, it can lower your blood pressure. Two, just 20 minutes outside can actually increase your attention. So if you struggle with attention, or if you're trying to concentrate on something, you don't need a diagnosis of a problem. If you just find you're having trouble concentrating,
Go outside.
You go outside for 20 minutes. And the science is complicated, but also easy in that. So if you're in a beautiful area like this, and I ask you to look at the waterfall, that's not hard for you to look at the waterfall.
No.
So when you're looking at something that's beautiful, that mental energy that you use to fight off distractions is getting a rest. So that when you choose to go back and focus on your task, that part of your brain is actually rested up. You can fend off distractions, and you can concentrate for longer. It seems counterintuitive, but if you look at something that's beautiful, it really, really does help.
I think it really, really does help. Yeah.
And if you're recovering from an injury or surgery, people who spend at least 20 minutes outside a day recover faster and with lower rates of infection. Even pictures of the natural world can help, but being outside
Even
is
a
the
video
best.
like this.
Even a video like this, can be helpful.
Bring you a little piece. I know my mother-in-law's doctor recently suggested to her that every day when the weather was good that she go outside and take off her shoes and just stand in the grass.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, we all need a doctor like that, right? Because it's just like reconnect yourself to the earth.
So in Japan, they're actually prescribing this idea of this time in nature.
Yeah.
Because there is so much stress, and doctors are actually prescribing it. In the school that I referenced that I went out to in Western Washington, part of that schooling was that I had to go to the same place in the forest every day for an hour. So for that year I was out there, I picked the spot and I went to it every day for at least an hour
That's
a day.
awesome. And would you journal or just sit? Or
Once I got back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that, the sense of calm and understanding of one place in the world kind of translates to many other places.
I feel like you're describing exactly what I do with Taughannock without me knowing it was a thing.
So sitting makes it easier to do it, but then eventually you can do it while you walk, you can do it while you run. So it's almost this meditation where you're just not thinking about other things, you're just being present.
Right.
In that time where you are. You're not thinking about the future, you're not thinking about the past. So that's what the natural world can do when you say, oh, that's beautiful. There you are. You're right there in that time and place, and you're not worried about where you're going to eat, what you're going to do. So
right, who you have to call.
Yeah, so try to be in the present, especially in places like this.
Yeah, I know as a knitter that's one of the reasons I knit. Like knitting gets me to that place very
It's very
quickly.
similar to like a meditation where somebody has a mantra where they say that one thing over and over that centers them. You're centered on that activity.
Yeah, it's a moving meditation.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you so much for spending some time teaching us about Taughannock and the Gorge and how it was formed in this area. And for everybody, I hope people get here at some point in their lifetime. And if you don't, this will give you a really good idea of Taughannock, my favorite place on earth.